What's up, guys? So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the 2021 Wethepeople bike line. I'm going to go over every single bike in the line, and then we're going to just ultimately, I'm going to talk about the description, the price, the colors, the specs, the street score, the park score, the dirt score, the quality score, the look score, the Dougster Bob score, any potential issues that I see happening with the bike. I'm going to talk about who the bike is for, and ultimately if I would recommend it or not. In the last couple of years, I've reviewed tons and tons and tons of different bikes, and some suck. So if this bike, if any of the bikes that I review suck, I will tell you there's a better option for you, because nobody wants to get a bike that they don't ultimately love and that's not going to last them. So we're going to run through this review. This is literally the fourth time that I'm doing it. I did it once, the audio was awful, did it again, and it takes me like a couple hours to go through all of these. First time, audio was awful. Second time, it just looked bad, I think. Third time, I filmed half of it. And anyway, and now I have the camera and everything set up, so I'm just going to do it again. And we're going to see what happens. So here we go. The Dougster Bob mission. Growing BMX by making it fun and easy to understand. For some of us, it's an escape. For others, it's a passion. But for all of us, it's a lifestyle. You're gonna love this sport. I'm glad you're letting me teach you everything that I know about it. If you're looking for a bike and you want this to be a lot easier than scouring the internet for hundreds of different reviews and looking at different specs, you can get a free BMX bike recommendation from me. All you have to do is click the link in the description, fill out a form, and then I will send you back a PDF that has 3 bikes that are perfect for you. It's going to take out a lot of the guesswork, and it's going to make your life a lot easier while you're shopping for a bike. So make sure that you do that and save yourself some time. Let's get back into the video. Alrighty, so in this video, we're going to be talking about the Wethepeople Envy, the Battleship, the Reason, the Nova, the CRS, a little bit about the CRS Free Coaster, the Arcade, the Justice, the Crysis, the Versus, the Trust, a little bit about the Trust Free Coaster, and the Revolver. Some of these bikes got really, really high score on the Dougster Bob score. Some did not get that high. If you're new and you don't know what the Dougster Bob score is, I'm going to run it through you real quick. If you already know what it is, I've got this video separated into chapters so that you can just go to the next chapter and skip this rambling, okay? So the Dougster Bob score is something that I designed to give like a solid rating on each bike in each section. So for example, the Wethepeople Envy scored a 9 in the dirt section. That's very low. It's 9 out of 30. Okay, but let's see, the Wethepeople Crysis scored a 15 out of 30 in the dirt section. This goes for street, it goes for park, it goes for quality, and at the end, the bike gets an overall Dougster Bob score, which ultimately says how good the bike is. The score is out of 200. No bike has gotten a full 200 yet. I'm pretty sure it's impossible, but this is a way to like look at a bike and know what it's good for just based off of solid information, right? How high quality is it? What is the geometry? What kind of tires are on there? Things like that I look at when I'm ranking these bikes. This sheet has, right now it's at over 55 bikes and it's always growing. So there's a link down below you can click on, put in your email address, and it gets sent to you. Download it, and then you can compare any bike on here. You could go and look and say, oh wow, the Trust got a 110 Dougster Bob score, but the Envy got 129. And you can look at all that information and decide which bike is ultimately best for you, or you can fill out the free BMX recommendation and get that information sent to you. Either way, there's a lot of options. That's what the Dougster Bob score is. And let's get right into the video. I'm done talking. Let's go. So first, let's talk about what Wethepeople says about the Envy. Wethepeople says the Envy is a chance for us to showcase how far BMX design has come and a glimpse into the direction it's heading into. The launch of this particular model always sparks debate and attention unlike any other bike in our line, and for good reason. The Envy is a chance for us to hand select only the creme de la creme from our product lines and carefully assemble them into one masterpiece of a bike. The 2021 Envy proves that strength does not have to come from a weight disadvantage. Built up using our super light Envy XLT frame along with the E-Class Storm XLT forks, E440 rims, and groundbreaking seismic hubs. The Envy is the highest spec BMX bike of all time. Despite the low weight, the Envy was designed for even the most brutal street and park riders and handle the Bro, I'm not finishing that. There's a lot in there. I don't even know if I'll put that in the video. Anyway, they hyped it up, way up. But it's true, okay? The Envy is absolutely amazing. The quality is there. And the way that I look at it is, imagine that you are able to have Mr. Beast gave you a credit card. He said, walk into the Wethepeople warehouse, grab whatever you want, and put a bike together. That's what the Envy is. Mr. Beast went in there, he grabbed everything, he threw this together. Everything's fully aftermarket, which is something you're not going to see on a lot of complete bikes. Usually they put together pretty good parts on a complete bike, but nothing like this. So let's talk real quick about the price that, I talked about that it was very expensive. It is very expensive. It's $1,169. That's almost $1,200, which is what you could build a decent custom bike for. You could build a decent custom for about $1,200 and have parts that are very specific for you, colors that you like, and things like that. Is it worth $1,200? We're going to talk about that at the end. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it. We'll talk about that at the end. Now, it only comes in a black chrome colorway. It looks pretty good. It's mostly black. The frame's a little bit chrome, a little blacked out. It's solid, but it's nothing really exotic. So some people get a bike just for the crazy colors. And if that's you, this is a bad choice. So a lot of the specs were talked about when I ran through that big, huge, long description that Wethepeople had made for their sales page. But one thing I just want to point out, just looking at the page here, every single part is E-Claw or Wethepeople. So salt you'll see in a lot of the different Wethepeople reviews and on a lot of the different bikes. Salt it goes like this. It goes like fully stock. Okay. Something you'd see just like fit handlebars, fully stock. Then it goes like assault or mission in Kink's case. Okay. Those are they're a step up from the basic. And then it goes up again to higher end aftermarket parts like Wethepeople, like E-Claw, like Odyssey, Sabrosa, all those are really high end aftermarket parts. So you can see a lot of complete bikes with quote unquote aftermarket parts, and they're lower quality aftermarket parts, but aftermarket parts nonetheless. This one, high quality aftermarket parts. Each part on here you could buy separately and it would cost you a lot of money to do it this way. So that's the main thing I want to point out. I mean, the rims are double wall, everything's full chromoly, heat treated chromoly, which is just a step up in craftsmanship versus normal chromoly. And yeah, everything's super solid on this bike. Very expensive if you built it if you built it separately. All right, so the Wethepeople Envy geometry is a little bit interesting. The reason that it's interesting is because there's two different options. So there's a 20.5 inch top tube and a 21 inch top tube. Just Google Dougster Bob size guide. There's a really interactive size guide that tells you exactly what sizes are good for you. So check that out to make sure and see if 20.5 is right for you or if 21 is right for you. The chainstay length is a 13.1. So that means it's a 12.9 inch slammed and a 13.35 all the way out. Most people ride it right in the middle, which is going to be 12.9. This is under 13, so it's technically responsive, but it's not super crazy. Some bikes go all the way up to like a 12.7 on center, and that is going to be crazy responsive. So this bike it's a good balance, honestly. It's going to balance responsive, snappy feeling and controlled, flowy feeling. Now the standover is 8.75 inches. This is a little lower than normal. A taller standover gives you more seat to pinch when you're doing bars, when you're doing toboggans, maybe Superman seat grabs. And a lower standover makes tail whips and foot jam tail whips a lot easier. So consider that. I think that 8.75 isn't super low. It's a good balanced. I mean, 9 inches is pretty much perfectly balanced. So it's a little smaller, but it's not the extreme. Okay, so now let's run through the different scores that this bike got. We're going to talk about, is it good for street riding? Is it good for park riding, dirt riding? What's the quality like? What's the look score like? And what's the overall Dugster Bob score? All right, I wish I had like a button I could do air horns and deepen my voice and stuff. All right, so the Wethepeople NV scored a 26 out of 40. This is really high because not many bikes are able to get over 20. The reason it scored this is because it has 4 hub guards but no pegs. It could do better if it came with those pegs. The tires are really good for street. The build strength is excellent. You need a strong bike for big drops and big gaps and just hefty street riding. But it doesn't have a free coaster. It has a cassette. So that's why it got a 26 out of 40. There's a lot of things that you could do to make it more for street riding. There's a lot of things you can do to make it more for park riding, which brings me to park. It got a 16 out of 30 in park. Again, just a little over 50%. It has gyro tabs, but it doesn't have a gyro. It has somewhat responsive geometry, but not super responsive. And the tires are pretty good for park also. Now the dirt section, it did pretty bad. It got a 9 out of 30. This is because the geometry isn't super mellow. So it doesn't provide you a really stable, controlled feeling like you would want on a dirt specific bike. The tires are more for park and street, not very good for dirt. And the gearing's okay. It's just basic 25/9. So it's going to work fine on the dirt. But it's not 28/9 or 30/10, things like specific dirt bikes would have. All right, now the one that matters the most is the quality. And I'm happy to say that the Wethepeople NV got a 100% or 40 out of 40 in the quality section, which is what you would expect for a $1,200 bike. If this thing did not have a 40 out of 40, I would be pretty heated at Wethepeople. But it has full aftermarket chromoly frame, forks, bars. The rims are double wall. They're also welded, flash welded double wall, which is a lot stronger than pinned rims. They're going to hold up a lot better. The warranty on this bike is a guarantee on the frame, forks, and bars, I'm pretty sure. Which isn't necessarily, it's just the frame and forks. It's not necessarily a warranty, but it's a guarantee. So if you have a manufacturer defect, like they break where they shouldn't break, things like that, always reach out to them and say, hey, this happened. Is it covered? Now, if you throw it off a building, they're not going to cover it. If it gets hit by a bus, they're probably not going to cover it, but it is a guarantee on their craftsmanship. It's them saying, hey, we put a lot of effort into these bikes. We make really good quality parts. They're not going to break unless something crazy happens. So that's what the guarantee is. Now in the look section, it got an 18 out of 30. It could have done a lot better if it had more color options. I always talk about this, how our color is how we kind of express ourselves. So not being able to choose from different colors is kind of limiting, but overall it looks like a really good bike. It's nice and clean and it's fully customizable, meaning you can replace any part on that bike with any part that you would buy from a trusted BMX website, shop.dugsterbob.com. Yeah, so overall, guys, the Dugster Bob score is a 129 out of 200. Very high score. There's only two Wethepeople bikes that scored higher than the NV, and it's because they're more specific in, that always happens. I'm minding my own business, filming a video and a notification. Anyway, there's only 2 different bikes that scored higher than the Wethepeople NV. And these are bikes that are more specific for, say, street riding or park riding, something like that. They're more specific in one area and they did score a little bit higher. We will talk about those later. But for now, the Wethepeople NV got a 129 out of 200. Now, the potential issues that I see with this bike, there's only one. I see it possibly happening where you spend $1,200 on an incredible bike and you quit riding. That would be very sad. That's a waste of money. You should not do that. So this brings me to the next section, which is who is it for? and I wouldn't recommend it for a brand new rider or a kid struggling with money. If that's you, you can get by with a much lower quality bike. I'd recommend the Envy for someone who's already riding at like a mid-level, but is really committed to the sport, really serious about riding, and wants a bike that can take them to the next level. Or an older guy who's getting back into the sport, you have the money to spend on this bike and you just want something that's not going to cause you any headaches. It sucks to buy a $300 bike and have to deal with random parts breaking all the time. So that's who this bike is for. Ultimately, would I recommend it? The answer is a solid yes. If you have the money for it, it's one of the best bikes you can get. Like I said, it's essentially like going into the store with Mr. Beast's credit card and hand picking the best parts that We the People makes and throwing them together on a bike. So I would recommend it. I think it is an excellent option. All right, and that is the 2021 We the People Envy. All right, so the 2021 We the People Battleship. First, let's read about what We the People says about the bike. We the People says, Battleship is a name synonymous with new school street riding and ultimate strength and durability, taking one of the most popular technical street frames on the market and adding a full aftermarket pro parts package. The Battleship is a great street bike is the greatest street bike ever made. Now featuring the brand new 15mm offset Battleship forks and a full E-Claw We the People parts package, this is a bike which any of our team could ride straight out of the box with zero compromise. A full custom bike in every sense of the word, the Battleship carries a full lifetime guarantee on the frame and fork, giving you full confidence that you're riding a bike designed to ride at the highest level possible. All right. So basically everything they said there is that this is the best bike ever made, really good, and for the most part, it's pretty accurate. This bike is very strong. It's got really good quality parts, and yeah, it's crazy that they include a guarantee on the frame and the fork. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But overall, that's a good description of a very good bike. So the problem here is that it costs a lot of money. It costs $1,099, almost $1,100. So this is a little bit cheaper than the Envy and a lot more expensive than some of their other bikes. It comes in two different colors. It comes in a glossy raw and an abyss blue. I like both of these colors, but I really like the glossy raw. I think ultimately that one looks a lot better. So let's talk about the specs on the Battleship. It's got a full 4130 chromoly frame, forks, and bars. The rims are double wall. It comes with a free coaster helix hub. It's got 2 pegs and 2 hub guards. No, 2 pegs and 4 hub guards. It's very street orientated and everything on here is E-Claw. Now I see a Salt chain. Salt is just a lower version, like a lower quality version of E-Claw. And a Salt brake lever. But really everything on here is E-Claw. It's such good quality. It's fully aftermarket. You could buy these parts separately, even if you don't have this bike, and you could put them on. And that just means that it's super high quality. I don't see anything here that really stands out aside from the free coaster and the small amount of Salt parts. Everything else is super good. The Battleship weighs 27.94 pounds, so it's not super light. The pegs and the hub guards definitely add to that. Free coasters weigh a little bit more. There's a couple of reasons why it would be a little heavier, but they all come around high quality and a lot of strength. So usually if you get something really light, it's not very strong. And if you get something very heavy, it's pretty strong. So that's how that kind of works. And that's why it's so heavy. Now, real quick, let's run through the geometry. This has a 20.75 inch top tube. Check out the size guide, see if that's the right size for you because it does vary based on your style of riding and your size. So double check that. It's got a 13-inch chainstay. 13 inches is very general. So what that means is that, it's not really responsive. It's not really snappy, but it's also not really controlled and really flowy. It's kind of right in the middle and it balances those two aspects perfectly. Now the head tube angle is 75.5 degrees. This is a little bit steeper than normal. Most head tube angles are about 75 degrees, so the 0.5 degrees brings your front wheel a little bit closer. It shortens your wheelbase and it makes the bike a lot more snappy when you're steering it from the front end. It's also going to make nose manuals pop up a lot easier. The standover height is 9 inches, which is, I'd say that's about average. Anything under 9 gets a little more responsive. It makes bar spins a little harder, but makes tail whips easier. Anything above 9 makes bar spins easier because you can pinch the seat, but tail whips harder because that seat gets in the way. All right, so now let's run through how the Battleship scored in street, park, dirt, quality, looks, and the overall Dougster Bob score. In street, the Battleship scored a 37 out of 40. This is almost a 100%. There's only a few bikes on here that have scored 100% in the street section, and the Battleship was very close to doing it, but not quite. So the reason that it scored this high is, well, it has a free coaster, it has pegs, it has hub guards. Those are your most important street aspects, and it has all of those. The only thing is it doesn't have 4 pegs and 4 hub guards, so it could do a little bit better had it come with those pegs and hub guards. Now, the park section is kind of interesting because it only got a 13 out of 30, so a little under 50%. This is one, it's because the geometry is not super responsive. Like I said earlier, it's very balanced. It's kind of right in the middle, and it has holes for a gyro, but it does not come with a gyro. So you can put a gyro on there if you want, but it doesn't come with it. Dirt section, it scored very, very, very bad. It got a 5 out of 30. The reason it scored so bad is that the geometry isn't specific for dirt. Dirt riders usually want a more mellow geometry. The tires are not very good for dirt. They're very street focused. And the gearing with a free coaster is awful. I don't recommend riding trails with a free coaster because you need, sometimes you need to pedal to get your speed to clear the next jump. If you case the jump prior, you lose a lot of speed. You might need to pedal to clear it. With a free coaster, that pedal doesn't do anything for you. That pedal takes about halfway to engage, and then once it's engaged, you're good. But in between the dirt jumps, you only have a certain amount of time, and it's a very time-sensitive matter. You need to pedal and get that speed right away. So a free coaster does limit your ability to do that. Quality section, it got a full 100%, scored very high in the quality section. And this is because, well, it's aftermarket quality. It's full chromoly, but the aftermarket chromoly adds a step up in craftsmanship and just overall quality. Double wall rims, and it's got the guarantee. So it's got everything that you need to have a fully trusted bike. You don't want to get a bike that might break, might not work. You want to get a bike that's fully trusted. Now, $1,100 is a lot. And at the end, I'll talk about whether it's worth it or not. But for now, the style score is a 25 out of 30. It's fully customizable. It only has 2 color options, which is better than some. And then it just looks very nice. Overall, it's a very visually appealing bike. It looks clean and it's built very well. Now, the potential issue that I see with the Battleship is the same as the one that I see with the Envy. I see you spending $1,100 on a bike and then not riding any longer. That's so sad to me, but that's the only issue. Other than that, the bike is very strong. You're not going to have your pedal falling off, your bars breaking. Like it's very strong, but you don't want to spend $1,100 on something that you're only going to ride for a little while. You want to get something that's going to last for the amount of time that you plan to ride. Okay, so keep that in mind, double check that. Now, who is this bike for? Well, like I mentioned, one, you got to have a lot of money. You need to be able to afford this $1,100 bike. And for older riders who are coming back into the sport, this is very feasible. And this is a very good choice for you guys because one, the quality is built to last. You have the money, you don't want to buy a bike and worry about changing out your chain, changing out this, blah, blah, blah. You want a bike, you want to be able to get on it, ride, and not worry about all the other nonsense. So that's basically who it's for. It's also for a mid-level rider who rides technical street and wants a bike that's going to help them progress to a higher level. You want to get on your bike, you want to ride, you want to be technical, you want a responsive feeling bike. This is for you. If you're just a beginner and you don't plan to ride forever, this bike is way too much and I would not recommend spending your money on it. All right, so the last question is, would I recommend this bike? And the answer is yes. If you match the description that I mentioned before, I would hands down recommend this bike because the quality is just so amazing. It's built very well, it's good for specific street riding, and you're not gonna have very many issues with it. So yeah. All right, on to the next one. All right, so the 2021 Wethepeople Nova. This is a okay, it's a beginner level bike. That's all we'll say. It's for beginner level riders, and we're going to talk real in depth about it. And then at the end, we're going to decide if this is a bike worth getting. Would I recommend it? Who's it for? All those good questions. So let's get right into it. So first, let's talk about what Wethepeople says about the bike. Wethepeople says, bringing Wethepeople quality to a lower price point for 2021 is our entry-level shredding machine that is available in 5 incredible colorways and 2 top tube options. The Nova features a super short 12.5-inch oval chainstay and responsive 26mm offset fork, allowing it to not only feel just like the bikes are pro team rides, but also make it much easier to progress your riding even further. Okay, so they didn't really go too in depth. They didn't really hype it up too much. They just said, hey, this is our entry level bike. It's just like the pro team rides, and it's going to make progressing a lot easier for you. This is kind of true. The geometry is similar to pro level bikes. The quality, however, is not even close. This is a very low quality entry level bike. I don't want you to feel like you got misled, because like I said, the geometry is there, the quality is not, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about colors. No. Let's talk about price and then colors. This bike is $399. This is, $100 away from that $500 price point and about $60 cheaper than the Kink Whip, which is a full chromoly bike. Not like Kink didn't pay me to say this, but for $40 or for $60 more, you can get a full chromoly bike with double wall rims. That's all I'm going to say. We're going to keep this focus to the Nova, and you can make your own decision. Okay. A cool thing here is that it does come in 5 different colors. I mean, technically, 5 different colors. Okay. It comes in laser green, matte raw, ultraviolet, matte black and white, and then matte black. The matte black and white is kind of cool because half one tire is black, half one tire is white. So if you look at it from one side, it's black. If you look at it from another side, the tires are white. That's kind of cool to me. So it's really nice that there's a lot of different color options. I think that's great, especially when you're starting out, because you want to get a bike that associates with you, right? Like a color you can vibe with, a color that matches your personality or your riding style or whatever. Colors on beginner level bikes are very important for the rider, but also for the company, because if they want to sell bikes, they need to choose bikes that are going to have colors that people want to buy. Now, let's talk over the specs real quick and see if there's actually anything good on here. So looking at the specs, I don't see anything super impressive, nothing that you'd want to brag about. Okay. The top tube options, well, I'll talk about that in geometry actually. So all I see here is high tensile steel, single wall rims, low quality, like I mentioned before. And you'll see salt in the parts package. And these are not salt aftermarket parts. These are just salt parts, like Salt manufactured these. So when you see things like Salt Nova cassette hub, it's not an aftermarket Salt hub. It's a Salt made the hub for the Nova. And this is kind of misleading. I don't know, maybe it makes sense to you guys, but for me, I know if I was a beginner rider and I saw that and I was aware of Salt as an aftermarket brand, I would think, oh, dope, aftermarket Salt parts, this bike's really good. That's not the case, guys. This bike is manufactured by Salt. They're lower quality parts designed, mass produced for the Nova. So what that means is that it's not They're not aftermarket, okay? So I don't think We the People is doing this to try and mislead you. I just think that they put this there and, you know, Salt made them, but either way, don't get misled. These are not aftermarket parts on here. You know, everything else that I see though, there's nothing special that stands out. The double wall rim or the single wall rims, high tensile steel bike, and just lower quality stuff in general. All right, so let's talk about the geometry. One thing that I do like about this bike is that there's two different top tube sizes. Choose between a 20-inch and a 20.5 inch. The 20-inch is good for those riders who are just starting out and transitioning from 18-inch bike to a 20-inch bike. 20.5 inches for those riders anywhere from like 5'3" to 5'9". Google the Dougster Bob size guide to see which size is right for you, because it'd be really bad if you got the wrong size, and your height depends on your riding style, your height, all kinds of different things. So hit the size guide and make sure that that is a good choice for you. The chainstay is a very short 12.75 inch chainstay. This is going to provide you a snappy and responsive feeling. Manuals are going to be easy to get up into, a little bit harder to control though. A lot of beginner bikes have a longer chainstay just because the stability and the balance is a more important aspect of it. However, We the People decided to go with a short responsive chainstay for the Nova. I don't know why, but hey, they're doing it. That's what's going on, okay? Head tube angle is 75 degrees. That's what most head tube angles are. It's not very steep. It's not very mellow. It's just right there in the middle. The standover height is 8.38. This is a pretty compact standover height. It's not super tall, so it's going to be harder to pinch your seat for bar spins. It's going to be harder to grab your seat for toboggans, but it will make foot jam whips and tail whips easier in the long run. All right, so let's talk about the street score, the park score, the dirt score, the quality score, the look score, and the overall Dougster Bob score. The Nova got an 8 out of 40 in street. It did not rank very high because it doesn't come with pegs. It doesn't come with hub guards. The tires are okay on street. The build strength is not strong enough for big gaps and big drops, and it doesn't come with a free coaster. So it scored very low in this section. In the park section, it scored a little bit higher because it has holes for gyros, but it does not have a gyro. It has somewhat responsive geometry with that shorter chainstay and the smaller standover height. And the tires are just okay for park. The tires in general aren't very good because they're just lower quality tires. In the dirt section, we got a 10 out of 30. It got a low score because the geometry is not very mellow. The tires are okay on dirt, again, just like everything else. And the dirt gearing is okay. It's 25.9, so it's not specific for dirt, but it's not a free coaster, so it's not awful. Now, the most important section is the quality section, and this bike only got a 4 out of 40. It scored really low because of the high tensile steel frame, single wall rims, high tensile steel bars and forks. These bend so easily, and it doesn't have any warranty or guarantee. Now, the style score is something, it's very high. It got 27 out of 30. This is because there's multiple color options. It looks visually appealing. It doesn't look like a dinky bike, like a mafia bike. And it's fully customizable. So it is beginner quality, but you are able to switch out the handlebars with aftermarket bars, the hubs with aftermarket hubs. You can customize it however you want. And this is a good aspect for making it look however you want. My shoulder seized up. The Dougster Bob score is a 71 out of 200. It's not great, but it's definitely not the lowest that I've seen. It's not very good. So that's all of these points combined to see how it ranks up. It could do better in a lot of different sections. I wish it came with at least 2 pegs and 2 hub guards, but you're able to purchase those on your own and then throw them on. Now, some of the possible issues that I see with this bike is the frame bending. High tensile steel is very weak, so if you land a spin wrong, you nose case something, you do a big gap and land funny, your frame's going to bend. High tensile steel doesn't really snap like chromoly, but it bends, so that back end can get shifted over time. That head tube can get bent up like really bad. I see the bars potentially bending where you grip them. If you land hard, those bend down. The forks bending outwards when you case something. That's about it. That's kind of a lot, but that's about it. There's a few other common things that happen with lower quality bikes, but for the general makeup, those are some issues that I see happening with the Nova, especially as you progress to become a mid-level rider. If you're just starting out, you're not going to put that much abuse on the bike, and you're not going to see those issues as soon as someone who is a mid-level rider would see. Now, who is the Nova for? The Nova is going to be for a brand new rider, someone who's just starting out and trying to learn basic bike control. If you've been riding for a while, you should skip up and get some better quality, because this bike is not going to last you very long once you start doing some mid-level tricks. Best for a beginner level rider who does not know what they're doing. All right, and the ultimate question, would I recommend this bike? I'm going to have to say no. It is too expensive for the quality that you're getting. I think that you can find some bikes out there that are a lot better quality for a little bit higher or the same price. If you're curious what those bikes would be, fill out the free bike recommendation form in the description, and I will recommend you 3 bikes that are better than this one. So yeah, I don't ultimately recommend it, and sorry. All right, so that is the Wethepeople Nova. Let's get on to the next one. All right, I just finished one of these reviews. I'm about to head to Domino's, pick up my pizza, and yeah. So just an update, you know, I think this would be fun to throw in the video, maybe a clip of me eating pizza. What's your favorite pizza? Leave that in the comments. Yeah, okay, bye. All right, so the Wethepeople Justice. Let's talk about what Wethepeople says about this bike. Based on the same bike that Wethepeople Pro Felix Pragenberg rode last season, the Justice features revised geometry and never before seen parts overhaul from Wethepeople. Our new Activate tires, Paragon plastic guard sprocket, and perfect grips make this new school urban machine more stacked than ever before. Paired with a shorter 22mm offset fork and a full assortment of plastic hub guards, you'd be forgiven for thinking that you're riding a full custom build. Sounds like they hyped it up just a little bit. It's definitely not the same bike that Felix Pragenberg rides. It's okay quality, but it's not near the level of quality that they make it sound like they hype it up to be. It is very responsive though, and that does come with the geometry that Felix Pragenberg's signature frame is. So let's talk about the price, the most important thing, second most important thing. This bike costs $519. Now this is $20 more than the Kink Switch. This is about $20 cheaper than the Cult Devotion. And I think $20 cheaper than the Sabrosa Malum. So that's kind of where it fits in here. It comes in 2 different colors. It comes in a matte ghost gray and a matte taxi cab yellow. I think the ghost gray looks really clean, and the taxi cab yellow is also, it's like really bright and flashy, but nothing wrong with that. Okay, so I want to run through the specs on here. The first thing that stands out to me is it's 4130 chromoly frame. So it's tri-moly, right? That means the front triangle. Can you see this? The front triangle, the head tube, the down tube, and the top tube are chromoly, where this back end is high tensile steel. And what happens when you spin, high tensile steel bends. So if you plan to do a lot of spins and progress, ultimately this frame, it's going to last for a little bit, but you're going to be unhappy. You're going to be unhappy with it in the long run for sure. So just make sure that you're aware of that. Now it has a lot of Salt aftermarket parts. Some of these are Salt parts that you could buy aftermarket. Keep in mind, it kind of goes like this. So there's stock parts. They're really cheap. They're mass produced. They're not very good. Then there's second level aftermarket, which would be like Salt, Mission, brands like that. And then there's fully aftermarket like Eclaw, Shadow, Profile, things like that. Odyssey, those are really high end. They've just got another level of craftsmanship put into them. So the salt parts are good. They're better than the alternative, but they're not the best. It does make this bike just a little bit better than like a Colt Control or a Colt Access, something like that. However, $500 is a lot for a tri-molly bike, but we will talk about that in a second. The forks are full 4130 chromoly. This is good. The bars are also full 4130 chromoly. It has one double wall rim in the back, and the front rim is a single wall. So this is kind of annoying, but it's not the end of the world. Your back wheel is going to take a big beating when you do spins, when you do whips. So that should be double wall for sure. Now the front wheel doesn't take as much of a beating unless you're like nose casing jumps, which hopefully you're not doing. So you can get away with a single wall front rim. However, if you're going to spend over $500 on a bike, you definitely should look into getting something with double wall rims. Other than that, there's nothing that really stands out. I did want to touch on the 22 millimeter offset forks. So 26 millimeters about average, and 22 is going to be a little bit steeper. What this does is this brings the front wheel in closer to the front end, making it a lot more responsive when you steer. It's going to turn a lot quicker, and nose manuals are going to be easier to pop up into. So this is for really responsive riding like Felix Pragenberg, Garrett Reynolds, stuff like that. And yeah, that's really about it on the specs. Let's roll right into the geometry. It's got a 20.75 inch top tube. Double check the size guide to see if this is the right size for you. It's a pretty fair size. Most people will be fine on a 20.75 unless you're obnoxiously tall. The chainstay is 12.75, which is actually pretty short and pretty responsive. This pairs really well with those steep forks that we mentioned, because that responsive back end is going to make spins come a lot quicker. They're going to be easier. It's going to be easy to pick up manuals. However, it'll be a little harder to control. So it gives you that responsive, snappy feeling with your frame, but it kind of sacrifices control. So keep that in mind. The second thing here is the standover height is 9 inches. This is actually about average. I'd say it's a little tall, but it's about average. So the average standover height gives you a good amount of room to pinch your seat to throw bars and do toboggans, but it also isn't too tall that you start to catch your feet on tail whips. So I like that this is balanced and right there in the middle. The last spec here, or the last part of geometry, is the 76-degree head tube angle. This is very steep. So most bikes are 75 degrees. Some bikes get a little steeper and go to 75.5. 76 is a lot steeper. It's gonna do the same thing that the steep forks do. It pulls the front wheel in closer to you, giving you a shorter wheelbase, making the bike steer and just feel really responsive. So this is a super, super, super responsive bike. All right, so let's roll right into how the Justice did in the street, park, dirt, quality, style, Dougster Bob score sections, okay? So in street, it got a 16 out of 40. This isn't very good. It got 5 points because it comes with hub guards, but it doesn't come with pegs. I'd really like to see pegs included on this bike because pegs are expensive. To get all 4 pegs, you'd probably spend around $80, and that's without shipping. So shipping, taxes, all that. The tires are okay for street, but the quality of the bike overall just isn't very good. Without a full chromoly frame, you can't expect your bike to hold up to big gaps and big drops like you would want it to. Now, it does not have a free coaster either, so that's a little bit depressing if you are a free coaster guy. Now, in the park section, it got a 15 out of 30, which is about a 50%. This is okay. It did good because it has holes for gyros, but it doesn't come with a gyro. The geometry is pretty responsive. It's going to be very similar to park-specific frames. The only difference is this one has a taller standover than some of the park-specific bikes, and the tires are okay in street. Now, dirt, it got a 12 out of 30. It did pretty low because the geometry is more park-specific, more technical than a mellow geometry that you would normally like on a dirt-specific bike. It also, the tires are okay. Tires are okay on dirt. They're okay all around, but they're not the best just because they're lower quality tires. The dirt gearing, this bike is okay at 25.9. A lot of dirt specific riders would like to have something that's like 30.10 or 28.9, but this is okay. That's why it got like almost a 50% in the dirt section. But let's talk about the quality section. This is the most important section. Everything else you can kind of change to make more for street, more for dirt, more for park, but the quality is based off of the foundation of the bike. And the frame is not full chromoly. The rims are one double wall, one single wall. The forks and bars are full chromoly, but it doesn't come with a warranty. So it's an okay quality bike. It's almost 50%. It didn't score as good as like the Wethepeople Envy or the Wethepeople Battleship, but it scored pretty high. It's also half the price of those bikes, so you got to keep that in mind too. Now the style score, it got a 25 out of 30. It would have done perfectly if it came with more than 2 colors, if it came with 3 colors or so, just because being able to choose a color that you really like is super important. So it has the 2 colors. It's fully customizable. What I mean by that is you can change out the bars, you can change out the forks, you can change out anything on the bike with a different part. And that's really important because getting a bike that's not customizable will make you rip your hair out. Now the Dougster Bob score, this bike got 100 out of 200, perfect 50%. This is actually pretty good. Some bikes didn't score. I mean, a lot of bikes didn't score this high. However, it's $520, but we'll talk about, I'll go on a little tangent here in a minute. The potential issues that I see with this is that back end bending and some issues with your front wheel. So again, like I mentioned, this back triangle is not full chromoly. So when you're spinning, it's taking a beating and it's getting bent the direction that you spin. That happens a lot. Same with the single wall rim. If you're constantly smashing that wheel, it's not going to last very long at all. It's super important to have a double wall rim, especially when you're riding at a mid-level. So it's for a rider who likes really specific street. You can get bikes that are better than this one for the same price or for cheaper, but this is the only one that's going to have that really responsive geometry. 76-degree head tube angle, 12.75 inch chainstay, 22 millimeter forks. It's built to just be super responsive, super snappy. But it brings me to the next part. Would I recommend it? And I would only recommend it if that's exactly what you want. Something steep, something responsive that you can get on and be more technical, So other than that though, this bike is way overpriced. For $520, you could get something with full chromoly double wall rims, but it might not be very specific like this one, geometry wise. So if this is absolutely what you're going for, go for it. You're not going to find it anywhere else. However, if you're just looking for a bike to ride street, ride dirt, whatever, 1, fill out the recommendation form so I can get you a good recommendation. But 2, this is not the move for you. This is not the move at all. Again, overpriced. Stay away unless you need that specific geometry. All right, so that is the 2021 Wethepeople Justice. Let's go on to the next bike. All right, so the 2021 Wethepeople Crysis. Let's talk about what Wethepeople says about the bike, and then we'll see if they're hyping it up too much or if that's pretty accurate. Built upon a frame which most other aftermarket frames would be envious of, the Crysis is wrapped in a generous helping of Wethepeople parts, including all-terrain 2.35 overbite tires, Logic sprocket, and new for 2021, the Logic front-load stem. The Crysis is available in 20.5 or 21-inch top tube sizes. Both are using our Invest Cast wishbone and taller 127mm head tube for a super clean and refined look. Overall, that sounds pretty accurate, pretty solid. One thing I want to point out is that wishbone. This was something that I came across a lot when reviewing their aftermarket frames. The wishbone is cast, so instead of it being a bunch of tubes that they just weld together to make that back end wishbone, it's casted and then it's connected. So it's a lot heavier than most like back ends on a frame. However, you're able to get different shapes that would have bigger clearance for bigger tires, and it's so much more sturdy. So that's interesting that they did that. They did it on a couple aftermarket frames. So I'm curious to see how this affects the weight and everything like that. So let's talk about the price. The Crysis is $659. This is more expensive than the Kink Cloud, more expensive than the Cult Devotion. God, I think it's more expensive than the Soundwave. Or no, not the Soundwave, the Street Sweeper. So it's a very expensive bike, but it seems like the quality is there. We'll talk about that in a second. Next, the colors. It comes in a matte black and a matte trans teal. The matte black is black and the trans teal is teal. So there you go. Now the specs. I want to talk a little bit about the specs because specs are very important for how your bike handles and how it lasts as you progress. Full chromoly frame, full chromoly bars, full chromoly forks. Very important. The forks are 26 millimeter offset, which is about average. They're not super steep and they're not super mellow. They're right at average. This has 2 double wall rims, and really that's the only thing that I see that's worth talking about. A lot of the aftermarket parts are Eclat and a lot of the aftermarket parts are Salt. Keep in mind that Salt is just a lower quality aftermarket part. Eclat is obviously a lot better. There's a lot more craftsmanship and stuff that goes into those parts, but Salt is still an aftermarket part, even though it's not the best. It's okay. All right. The geometry here, it's really cool when a bike comes with 2 different top tube size options. 21 is going to be for those taller guys. I'm 6'4". I ride a 21. But the 20.5 is it's more of a medium-sized option. So smaller guys can get it. It's going to feel big and controlled, while taller guys can get it. It's going to feel small and responsive. Check out the Dougster Bob size guide to see which size is correct for you and see if you're good for either of these sizes. I'm almost positive you are. These are really common sizes that work for almost everyone. The chainstay is a long 13.2 inch chainstay. This is kind of opposite of what most of Wethepeople bikes are. Most of their bikes are compact and very responsive. This one has a longer chainstay. So this is going to make the bike feel a lot more stable, a lot more controlled. It's going to be easier to control manuals, but it'll be harder to pick them up because of that longer chainstay. You've got to get your weight back a lot farther. The head tube angle is right at 75, which is average. And then the standover height depends on which size top tube you get. If you get a 20.5, it's 8.75 inches. If you get a 21, it's 9. 9 is the average. So, I mean, for the sake of the video, they're both pretty much average because of how it shifts with the top tube size. But the 8.5 being a little bit shorter, you're going to have less seat to pinch unless you raise your seat up more. If that makes any sense, don't stress out about it too much because it's not going to be the end of the world. One thing I want to touch on, this bike weighs 26.32 pounds. This is not a lot. I expected it to be a lot heavier, even with that InvestCast wishbone, but it's not too bad. Not too bad at all. So now keep in mind, this is the weight with the 4 hub guards. There are no pegs, and we're going to get right into how it did in street, park, dirt, quality, and style. I have a sneaky feeling it's a little bit better for dirt, but we will find out. All right, so in the street section, it got a 19 out of 40, which is about 50%. It only has those hub guards. It does not have any pegs, which is frustrating because pegs are expensive. The tires are okay for street. The build is pretty strong. It's not aftermarket strong like the Wethepeople Envy, but it is full chromoly, so that is very good. And it comes with a cassette, not a free coaster. In the park section, we got 2 holes drilled for gyro tabs, but no gyro. The geometry is not very responsive. It's pretty mellow. So doing responsive technical park riding is going to be a bit of a struggle, and the tires are okay in the park. Now for the dirt section, the geometry is more mellow, which is going to give you a lot more control, a lot more stability on the dirt. You're able to take those corners faster, and it's not going to feel like you're about to loop out. Tires, again, very well-rounded tires that are good in the dirt. and it's got 25.9 gearing. So if you want something that can get you a higher speed, get a 28 tooth sprocket that puts you at 28.9, and it's going to be harder to pedal, but you get a higher top speed. So now the most important part, the quality section. This bike got a 25 out of 40. The frame, like I mentioned, full chromoly. The rims, double wall. The bars and forks, full chromoly, but it does not come with a warranty or a guarantee. Overall, though, this is it's a really good score for the quality section. A lot of bikes don't even make it past 20, and this one has strong aspects that are going to last with you as you go from mid-level rider even up to a high-level rider. Now, the style section, this bike got a 22 out of 30. It didn't do great. This is because the color options are pretty limited. And to be honest, it doesn't look that good. The colorway, it just, I don't know, it's kind of bland. And I mean, it's fully customizable, so that's great. You can replace any part you want on it and customize it to be however you want. But as it comes, it's not like, it's not eye-catching. So yeah, that's the look score. The Dougster Bob score is a 108 out of 200. It got just a little bit higher than the Justice, and it deserves that spot for sure. But here's the thing. Take a look at this. It got 8 points higher than the Justice, but it's $140 more. Like, is that really worth it? We'll talk about that in a second. It's a very expensive bike, but it is good quality. So I don't know. Let's talk about it here in a sec. Some potential issues that I see with this bike is I see it potentially being overpriced and you spending way more money than you have to on it. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Wethepeople as a brand. They're a great brand. They build great products, but as an overall complete bike, it seems a little bit much. Who is the Wethepeople Crysis for? The Crysis is for a rider who wants to be pretty well-rounded. After you ride for a while, you'll start to figure out that, oh, I love doing 540s. Oh, I love spins. I love going high and fast. I love doing technical grinds. You need to figure that out. And once you do, it's a lot easier to adapt your riding and the parts that you get because you know, oh, I like to go high and fast. I'm going to get something with a lot more stability. Where the Crysis is very neutral in that aspect. So you can get on the bike, ride street, ride dirt, ride park, and figure out what you like and then transition from there. Now, the ultimate question, would I recommend it? And the answer is, I don't know. I'm going to say no, just because $660 is a lot of money. I would really recommend just getting the Versus for an extra $20. It is park specific. The Versus is park specific, but for that price difference, it really is a much, much, much better bike. The Cult Devotion is a lot cheaper. The Kink Cloud is cheaper, and the Kink Cloud is comparable quality for sure. So shop around a little bit, fill out the recommendation, and see which bike is best for you. I don't think I would put the Crysis on there just because, to me, this is like a $550 bike. 500, maybe 560. Around there. 660 just seems like a lot. Now, it looks really cool, don't get me wrong. Just a little bit expensive. All right, the Wethepeople Versus. Let's talk about what Wethepeople says about the bike, and then I'll just kind of see if they're hyping it up too much or if that's pretty accurate. They say it's an unstoppable skate park machine. The Versus features geometry borrowed from our Message aftermarket line, allowing it to shred transitions and skate parks unlike anything else. Kind of the same thing, but we added a sealed Salt Plus Geo rotator setup with dual cables to give the Versus plenty of braking power and performance, contra pedals, super lightweight Mirage tires, and a Unify combo seat from Eclat to help round off one of the most pro bikes in our 2021 lineup. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. It's funny, they mention a seat combo. Like, who cares? For one, who cares about the seat combo? If you're really that specific about a seat when you're buying a complete bike, you're wild. But the reason they did that was to make it seem like there's a lot more aftermarket parts than there really is, because like, I don't know, that kind of bugs me. Who cares, right? Maybe you care. I'm sorry if you care. The cool thing about this is the gyro. Now, not many bikes, like I said before, park specific bikes come with a gyro. And for new riders, throwing a gyro on your bike is, for whatever reason, a huge accomplishment and just something that we want to do. I did it with my bikes. Like, I just wanted a gyro just because, so I could learn bar spins. And when I finally learned bar spins, I didn't have brakes at all. But gyros are cool and they're really good for park riding. So this is dope. Now let's talk about how much it costs, because it's pretty expensive. The Versys is $684, almost $700. It's a little bit cheaper than the Kink Williams, a little bit more than the Kink Cloud, a little bit more than the Sunday Street Sweeper. So that's kind of where it sits. It only comes in a silver colorway. The lettering is purple. But let's talk about the specs. Now, it weighs 26.74 pounds, which is honestly heavy for a bike like this. I would expect it to be under 25, especially for park specificity. It comes with double wall rims, comes with that gyro that we talked about, full chromoly frame, forks, and bars. That's super solid. The bars are 50mm reach with a front load stem. This is interesting because a lot of bikes right now are switching over to being top load. This one comes with a front load to keep it more park. The front hub comes with female bolts, and it comes with 3 hub guards and 2 pegs. Why? I don't know. Don't know. It's a mystery, but that's really cool. Other than that, there's nothing really to talk about in the specs. So let's talk about the geometry. The Versys has a 20.65 inch top tube. Not many complete bikes have a top tube this size. It usually goes from 20.5 to 20.75. This is right in the middle of that. So if you're looking at the Dougster Bob size guide and you're unsure which one to get, this one's a good choice because it's smack dab in the middle. The chainstay is 12.75 inches, which is very responsive. It's going to make spins feel easier. Manuals are going to get into easier, but it's going to be harder to control. Overall, it just makes the bike more responsive and more snappy. Now the standover is a very, very, very short 7.75 inch standover, meaning that where the top of the seat tube is to the bottom bracket is only 7.75 inches. Most bikes are 9 inches. This one's 7.75. So that shorter standover height is going to make it harder to pinch the seat for bar spins and toboggans. It's also going to make tail whips a little bit easier because your foot gets out of the way when you kick it. You can get foot jam whips a little easier. And that's really about it for the frame geometry. All right, so let's run through the street score, park score, dirt score, quality score, and style score, then the Dougster Bob score to see how the Versys actually stacks up. First thing I'm seeing here is a 20 out of 40 in the street section. Very impressive for a park specific bike. And it did so good because it has 2 pegs and 3 hub guards, which is more than most complete bikes. The tires are going to grip fine in the street, and it's overall, it's a really strong bike. So you can take it off gaps, you can take it off drops. It's going to work fine for you. But here we go in the park section. This is one of the only bikes to get a 30 out of 30. It has that very, very, very responsive geometry. The tires, the Mirage tires, are lightweight, low rolling resistance, and it comes with a gyro. Like everything you need to ride park, this bike comes with it. And the dirt section is only an 11 out of 30, so it obviously didn't do very good there. This is because the geometry, that responsive geometry, is going to be really hard to control on dirt jumps. Now the quality is 25 out of 40. So it didn't get super high like the Envy or the Battleship, but it got higher than a lot at, a little over 50%. Full chromoly frame, full chromoly forks, full chromoly bars, double wall rims. Overall, those, that's the core foundation of your bike. And this bike hit the mark on all 3. Very strong, very strong. Now the style section is only an 18 out of 30. This is because there's only one color option. Overall, it looks okay, but the silver and purple is kind of bland. And the bike is fully customizable. Now, I just wish that it had some more color options so that more picky riders could choose and get something that they really love. The Dougster Bob score is a 120 out of 200. This is probably like the third or fourth highest Wethepeople bike. Did very good. So some of the potential issues that I see with the Wethepeople Versus are you getting this bike and then deciding that you want to be a dirt rider for whatever reason. If that happens, it's a pretty bad mistake. You can usually alternate bikes to be better for one type of riding or the other. But in this sense, it's going to be really hard to add half an inch to your chainstay and make it better for controlling dirt jumps. This is something that you don't want to get wrong. If you want a park specific bike, solid, but dirt jumps are going to be kind of hard for you. So keep that in mind. The next question is, who is this bike for? The Versus is going to be for a rider who is already riding at the higher end of a beginner, or even a mid-level rider who loves to ride park, wants to progress and learn tricks like whips, bars, 3 whips, down whips, all the whip combos. But I mean, any park trick you can think of, bar to foot jam, Vader jams, it's a very good bike for technical park riding. So yeah, if that sounds like that's you, that's who it's for. All right. Now, would I recommend this bike? And the answer depends. So if you are a mid-level rider who is infatuated with riding park, that's all you want to do, and you want a high-level bike to be able to ride park on, this is a good bike for you. If you're a beginner-level rider, I'd say don't get this. Get something well-rounded that you can feel out everything. Because I talk about this a lot, that the more well-rounded riders are the best riders. So it's nothing wrong with being park specific, but when you're just starting out, you don't know what you actually like more. So you need to spend that time on a well-rounded bike, figuring out which one feels right for you. All right, so that is the 2021 Wethepeople Versus. Let's get on with the next one. Alrighty, so the 2021 Wethepeople Trust. Let's talk about what Wethepeople says about the bike and then see if they're hyping it up or if that's pretty true. Wethepeople says, a finely tuned beast designed to kill it on any surface or environment. The Trust comes stacked to the brim with the latest Wethepeople components, including the 2.35-inch Activate tires and Paragon plastic guard sprocket. Rivaling any custom build-up, the Trust now features an aftermarket tripping Cortex wheelset from Eclat. Available in 2 incredible colorways, the Trust is well-stacked assortment of today's best components and BMX technologies. This is actually a really good bike. It's over $700. Okay, anyway, we're going to talk about the price, which I skipped ahead to. The cassette version is $720. The free coaster version is $740. So I think that's definitely a lot of money. I like to see complete bikes down around the $500 price range, but based off of what Wethepeople says about it, this is a really crazy good bike, so therefore it should be worth this. You're going to find out at the end whether it is or not. Let's keep going. All right, so both bikes come in a matte black and a matte raw. Let's talk about the different specs on the bike, and then we'll talk about the geometry. So the Trust is full 4130 chromoly frame, forks, and bars. It's got a 26mm offset on the forks, which is average. This isn't too steep. It's not too mellow. It's got fully sealed bearings, double wall rims, and the Eclat Cortex hubs, front and rear. These are good hubs. These are all aftermarket. When I look at these and when I see a bike where the company put a lot of name brand parts into it that aren't like, normally the lower end Wethepeople bikes have a lot of Salt parts. Salt is just a lower end version. It's still aftermarket parts, but it's not the same as putting Eclat on there. So the Eclat parts are definitely very strong, very good, but very expensive. The stem is a top load with a 50mm reach. If you don't know what that means, the longer the reach is, the harder bar spins are, but it gives the bike a more stable feel. So when your bars are out farther, steering feels a lot more stable, but bar spins are harder. So keep that in mind. 50mm is pretty long. The only other thing worth touching on is that the bike weighs 26.95 pounds. This is kind of a lot for a high-end bike. I'd like to see it under 25 pounds, but I'm sure they're doing their best. All right, the geometry. The Trust cassette version comes in a 21-inch top tube with a 13.2-inch chainstay, a 75.5-degree-inch head tube angle. This is a little steeper than normal, going to make nose manuals easier, and the front end is going to feel a lot more responsive with steering. And then the standover height is 9 inches. So the chainstay, 13.2 inches, is a little bit longer than normal. Also, this provides good stability and good control, and that standover is about average. But for the Free Coaster version, things change a little bit. The Free Coaster version has a 20.75 inch top tube, 0.25 inches shorter, 13.25 inch chainstay, of half an inch shorter, and a 75.5 degree inch head tube angle and the same standover height. So the Free Coaster version is a lot more compact. It's going to be a little bit better for more responsive riding. And then the cassette version's a little bit longer. It's either good for taller riders or more of a flowy type style. Now, double check the size guide to see which size is perfect for you. You want to make sure that you get the right size top tube. So it's cool you can kind of choose between these two and see which one's better for you. Alrighty, now let's run through the street, park, dirt, quality, looks, and Dougster Bob scores. I will, for a lot of these, they're the same, but it does vary because of the Free Coaster and the cassette version. So I will point out those differences as we go. Right off the bat, we got the street score. The cassette version got a 21 out of 40. And this is because it doesn't have a Free Coaster. Now, the Free Coaster version got a 30 out of 40. So it did a lot better. Now, this isn't set in stone. If you're still a street rider, but you hate Free Coasters, obviously the cassette version is going to be better for you. The general consensus is that most street riders ride Free Coasters, so that's just how it goes. Now, the park section, the cassette version got an 11 out of 30, and the Free Coaster version got a 15 out of 30. This is because the Free Coaster version's geometry is a lot more compact. We talked about that already. Now, the dirt section, the cassette version got a 14 out of 30, while the Free Coaster version got a 6 out of 30. This is because Free Coasters are not very fun to ride on the dirt. You need to be able to pedal to catch up your speed to get enough to clear a jump. If you case one and you're kind of slow in that middle area, you need to pedal so that you can make it through. And if you have a Free Coaster, that slack kills about half of your pedal, so you're not able to get enough speed like you would with a cassette. Now, both bikes got a 25 out of 40 in the quality section. This is the same as the Wethepeople Crysis and the Wethepeople Versus. They're full chromoly, double wall rims, and no warranty. So they've got the full chromoly bars and forks, full chromoly frame, and those double wall rims. This is overall, it's a very good base to have a bike that you can upgrade parts on and build into something that you love. Now, the look section, they both got 23 out of 30. This is because they're only got those two color options. There could be a lot more variation there, but this is an expensive bike. It's very understandable that you can't spend a ton of money on different variations for a very expensive bike because not many people have $720 to spend on this. Now, the Dougster Bob score, the cassette version got a 110 out of 200, and the Free Coaster version got a 115 out of 200. Keep that in mind when you're looking at these. One is a little bit better than the other, but one is also a little bit more expensive. So, it's crazy to me that the score reflects that without me even accounting it in, but that's just how it works. Crazy. All right, so some potential issues that I see with this bike are, it's just a lot of money. That's the only thing. I see some people spending way too much money on this bike and then not sticking to the sport, not riding. It's very sad, but it could happen. So you got to be careful and make sure that if you're going to invest this much money in a bike, that you're 110% committed to getting into the sport and to killing it. Now, who is the Wethepeople Trust for? This is a pretty high-end street bike, so you should be riding at a mid-level already or a high level, looking for a bike that's going to provide you the quality that you need to take it up a notch and keep progressing. The Trust is designed to last you for a long time as you keep progressing. Would I recommend this bike? The quick answer is going to be a no, but let me explain. I just think it is a good bike. Okay, it's a really good bike. Quality's there. The parts are there. Everything about it is solid. I just think that 720 or 740 respectively is a lot of money. I think that you can look, if you're serious about BMX, go for it. This is a very good bike and I do recommend it. But if you're still iffy, if you're not sure if you really want to keep riding, if you're not sure if you really want to be the best at it, like it's a lot. Now, if you're an older guy getting back into the sport, this is a solid bike that's going to give you no headaches as you get in, as you keep riding and get back on it. But I'm more focused at those younger guys who are kind of don't have a ton of money laying around and they're like, well, should I spend all $700 on this bike? And look, only if you're really serious about it. If not, you can get something lower, learn on, progress on until it breaks, and then move on from there. All right, so that is the 2021 Wethepeople Trust and Trust Free Coaster. Let's get on into the next review. Alrighty, the Wethepeople Revolver. Let me read you what Wethepeople says about the Revolver. Taking our do-it-all aftermarket Revolver frame and draping it in some of the finest high-end components, we've managed to create an incredibly sophisticated and balanced bike for the kind of rider that appreciates the finer things in life. The long 21-inch top tube and perfect all-round geometry make the Revolver perfectly comfortable on any terrain, from the deep end of a bowl to the main line at your local trails or even the back streets of a city. There's another paragraph. I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to point out a few things. This is mostly dirt specific because of the mellow geometry, but you can ride flowy park with it. You can ride street with it. Like it's like a Gary Young style bike. I'd compare it to the Soundwave, what is it? Special complete bike. Anyway, it has a lifetime guarantee on the frame and the fork, which is again comparable to the Soundwave complete bike that has a guarantee on the frame, forks, bars, and cranks, but each its own. Let's get right into the price. That is a big thing to talk about. Literally the price, very big, $1,099. It's about $1,100. That's a lot of money. You can almost buy a completely custom bike for that price. This is good if you go this route because you don't have to worry about buying everything separately. You're spending $1,100. You're getting a full custom quality bike that's not necessarily customized to you, but just custom and very strong, very good. This is very good. That's a lot of money though. I probably spent the most expensive bike I ever bought was in the $600 range, complete. And it was solid, but it didn't last as long as something like this would have. It only comes in one color. It comes in a matte skipper green, which is kind of lame. I don't like the color. I like more vibrant colors, but maybe you like this color. If you do, I'm sorry for offending you. This just isn't my color. Okay, so some of the specs on this bike that really stood out to me is, well, it's full 4130 chromoly frame, forks, and bars. These are stronger aftermarket parts, so they're even better than a lot of the general full chromoly frames and bars and forks that come with the bikes that are a couple $100 cheaper. That is good. It also has double wall rims that are welded on the seams. So where the rim seams together, they'll either weld it, which is a more expensive, stronger option, or they'll put pins in little holes, and that's what holds it together. The pins are cheaper, but a lot weaker. You will see double wall rims with pins on like $500 bikes, whereas these higher end ones come with the welded double wall rims. It has, where did I see it? 51 millimeter reach stem. This is a pretty long stem. It's got a big reach. It's going to feel stable and controlled. It goes with everything else on this bike, but it's going to make bar spins a little bit harder. This bike weighs 26.6 pounds. This is pretty heavy. I wish it was closer to the 25 mark, but What can you do? Now let's talk about the geometry, because this is some unique geometry. 21-inch top tube, best for taller riders, but double check the size guide to see which size is right for you. It also has a 13.5-inch chainstay. That is crazy. This is one of the longest chainstays I've seen on a complete bike. The Cult Devotion's 13.65. This is very long chainstay. It's going to make the bike feel really stable, really controlled at high speeds. Manuals are going to be easy to control, but hard to pick up since you have to shift your weight a lot farther back. And the head tube angle is 74.75 degrees. Now, 75 is the normal. Some bikes go steeper, 75.5 or 76. This one goes the other direction. It's a half a degree more mellow, or a quarter of a degree. You really won't feel it, but the whole idea here is that it brings the wheelbase out a little bit wider so that you can have ultimately more stability, just like everything else on this bike that it's going for. The standover height is 9.1 inches, which is a little bit taller than average, but not enough for you to really notice. So how do you think that the Revolver did in the street section? So the Revolver got a 19 out of 40 in the street section. This is pretty good. It would have done a lot better if it came with 4 pegs and 4 hub guards, and the tires are okay, but it's a very strong bike. Very, very strong, built for hefty riding. So if you do ride street and you're like Sean Burns, if you're watching this bike is fine for you, man. In park, it got an 11 out of 30. It did not do very good in park just because the geometry is so big. That long chainstay is going to make 720s, 540s very hard to do. The mellow head tube angle is going to make it hard to snap the bike around. The long stem is going to make it hard for bar spins. In the park specific world, this bike is not very good. But in dirt, one of the only bikes to score this high, it got a 25 out of 30. And this is because it has really mellow geometry that's going to give you full control of your bike when you're ripping through the dirt jumps. So the gearing on this bike is a little different than normal. It's more designed for a high speed but slower acceleration. It's a 28 sprocket in the front and a 9.2 sprocket in the back. So this gives you, it's going to be harder to pedal, but once you go, you can pedal for longer and ultimately get to a higher top speed. A lot of dirt riders ride this kind of setup just because they like it and it really helps them out with dirt. As far as quality goes, the Revolver got a 100%. It got a 40 out of 40. It's because it's got full chromoly frame, forks, bars. It's got double wall rims, and it comes with that guarantee on the frame and the forks. Very solid. You can't go wrong with that. The style section is only a 21 out of 30. This is because there's only that one color option. However, everything on this bike is fully customizable, fully replaceable. You can swap out whatever you want to make it suit you. Now the Dougster Bob score is a 132 out of 200. This bike got second place in the We the People in the Dougster Bob score, right behind the We the People Battleship. It's a very solid bike, but it's also very expensive. I love the fact that it's dirt specific because you don't see many of those that are high end. Fit has the Fit Trail, but it's not full chromoly. It's kind of expensive. It's junk. This bike is the opposite end. It's 3 times the price of the Fit, but it's also like not even close to junk. But I like having this as an option on the free bike recommendations because if I see someone that's high level that wants to ride dirt, it's definitely out of their budget more times than not. But I'll throw it in there and say, hey, if you really want something perfect, this bike's a very solid choice. So I like that We the People made it, and I think it's a solid bike. Now, some of the potential issues that I see with this is people getting it and trying to be technical on it. Like I've mentioned before, the geometry is really mellow, so real technical tricks are going to be hard, if not impossible. I mean, you could do whatever you want on it, but I don't want you to get the bike thinking you can do this and then have a hard time with it. That's no fun. That's really the only potential issue. Who is this bike for? It's for 2 different types of people. It's for people riding at a mid to high level who want a solid bike that's going to help them keep progressing, especially dirt riders. You're not going to find very many dirt specific bikes, and you're not going to find another one with this amount of quality. It's also for older riders who are getting back into the sport that have the money to spend $1,100 on a bike and just want something with no nonsense. The 28.9 is going to feel different to you. You might like it, you might not, but you don't have to worry about random things breaking like you would on a $500 bike. All right, the question is, would I recommend the bike? And the quick answer is going to be yes, if you have the money and if you're a dirt specific rider. This bike's designed to get you through all that, last for you, help you progress, and just give you a good time on the bike. Now, if you're poorer and you're just trying to find a bike to get on it and start riding, this is a bad choice because you cannot afford to spend $1,100 on a bike that you're not confident in your ability of riding. Get control first on a cheaper bike and then work your way into something like this. Don't start out on a bike like this. It's definitely overkill. All right, and that is the Wethepeople Revolver. Let's pop on over to the next bike. The Wethepeople CRS. Now, there's a free coaster version and there's a normal version. For the sake of the video, this is all about the same bike, and I'll touch on the differences in each version, but for the most part, they're pretty much the same. Now, this bike's okay. It's nothing crazy, and it's just a little over $400. At the end, I'll dig in and I'll tell you straight up whether I recommend it or not. Some of these bikes in the Wethepeople line I have not recommended, and some of them I have, so we will find out. Let's get right into it. Now, we're going to start it off by reading what Wethepeople says about the CRS. One of the most anticipated bikes in BMX, the CRS is back for 2021 with even more bang for your buck. Now featuring a sealed front hub, this all-terrain Slayer rolls smoother than ever, packed full of aftermarket parts from Eclat, including the BIOS pivotal seat and pure seat clamp. The CRS looks and rides like a bike twice the price tag. And then it talks a little bit about the geometry. It's got a short 12.75 inch chainstay, 26 millimeter forks, and 165 millimeter cranks. So that's the bike. They did hype it up just a little bit too much, in my opinion. It's a okay bike, but it's not like, you know, full aftermarket parts from Eclat, and then all it says is a seat and a seat post, like, or a seat clamp. That's nothing to brag about. You know, you could buy any seats. I'm really nitpicky today. I don't know why. I'm sorry, but for real, you know, you can't hype up a seat and a seat clamp. It's just like yeah, it's cool, but it's not. Yeah. Come on. Anyway. That's what they say about it. Now let's talk about the price. The CRS is $420 and the CRS free coaster is $440. So you're paying an extra $20 to have a free coaster, which in my opinion isn't a bad deal. At the end, I'm not going to spoiler alert it, but I'm going to spoiler alert it. I'll probably recommend the free coaster version instead of the cassette version, just because the quality to price ratio of the free coaster is a lot better than the cassette. And you'll see what I mean by that later. But that's the price of the bike. Let's talk about the colors. Now the CRS comes in a matte black and a galactic purple. The CRS free coaster comes in the same matte black, but also a translucent berry blast. Say that 10 times fast. So, you know, altogether there's 3 different color options, depending on how nitpicky you are. The matte black looks pretty nice because there's a touch of chrome that really cleans the bike up. And then the blue, or the matte galactic purple, looks more like blue to me. And it's just a blue frame, but it's really shiny. Overall, it looks okay. The translucent berry blast is a darkish purple that, to me, I don't really like it. I don't like that color. Again, maybe I'm just being picky, or I don't know, but it doesn't look that great. So now let's talk about the different specs that are actually on the bike and see if it lives up to all the hype that Wethepeople put into that description. It has a 4130 chromoly down tube, and the rest of the frame is high tensile steel. So if I'm being honest, the down tube isn't going to make that much of a difference. I mean, yes, it's chromoly. It's a teeny tiny bit step up in the quality, but it's not enough to really make the bike last longer for you. The chainstay is still going to bend. The top tube can still crack, can still bend when you nose case things. You know, if you're looking at a different bike that's tri-moly or full chromoly, but you like the color of this bike, it's not worth stepping down to just a chromoly down tube to sacrifice one of those things. Now, the fork is a high tensile steel with a 4130 chromoly steer tube. And if you've watched me talk about the other bikes, this bike does not have the chromoly legs. So when you case a jump, the legs are going to take an impact and the legs are going to bend in. When you disaster, when you nose case, whatever, the legs are going to bend. So that chromoly steer tube really doesn't do a whole lot for you except make that connection there a little bit stronger and the fork in the tubes. But once you start riding at a level that you're bending the legs of the fork, the chromoly steer tube doesn't matter. So to me, that it's just, there's nothing there, you know, that little bit of chromoly doesn't make enough of an impact, especially to justify the price. I'm not going to get on that rant right now. We'll talk about that later. Now the rims are single wall, and if you've heard me talk about single wall rims, you know that I hate them. When you're doing jumps, when you're doing tricks, when you're doing spins, your rims take a lot of impact. And as you start to abuse those rims, single wall rims bend and they fold. So to me, if you're doing spins or you're doing big drops, it's really important that you have some double wall rims. Now, this bike is definitely classified as a beginner bike in my book, and you shouldn't get it if you're riding at a mid-level. You should get it if you're riding at a beginner level, but that is about it. There's a lot of parts on here that say Salt, and Salt mostly just manufactures the parts. There's nothing real aftermarket except the rims. There's Salt single wall rims aftermarket, and that's really about it. There's nothing crazy standing out for me on this bike. So let's talk about the geometry. It has a really small 20.25 inch top tube, a 12.75 inch chainstay. Now the shorter chainstay is going to bring the back wheel closer to you, and it's going to make spins a little easier. It's also going to make it easier to pick the bike up for a manual, but it's going to be harder to control once you're in that manual. So keep that in mind. Now, if you're wondering if the 20.25 inch top tube is right for you, Google Dougster Bob size guide. Go to my website. All you have to do is click. It tells you your height, and then you'll know exactly if this is the right size for you or not. I don't know your height, so I can't really tell you. All right, and the standover height is 8.4. This is pretty compressed compared to a lot of other frames. It's not real short like a really responsive park frame, but it's not really tall like a mellow street frame. So it's kind of right there in the middle. So we covered the specs. Now let's talk about how it did in the street section, the park section, the dirt section, the quality section, and the overall style section. And then we'll talk about its overall Dougster Bob score and whether or not I would recommend it. Now for street, it got a 9 out of 40. This is really low, and this is mostly because it doesn't come with pegs, it doesn't come with hub guards, but the normal version does not come with a free coaster. The free coaster version got an 18 out of 40, so it did a lot better in the street section than the normal CRS. So if you're looking at street, get the CRS free coaster, because the free coaster is so much better for street riding. It just opens up a whole new world of tricks for you. Now in the park section, both variations got a 13 out of 30, which is a little higher than 33%. I would say this is a good bike for learning the basics of park. If you're learning airs, disasters, tire taps, maybe even foot jams, this would be a good bike to start out on and get comfortable with park riding. In the dirt section, it got a 10 out of 30. The normal CRS got a 10 out of 30. The free coaster CRS got a 6 out of 30. And this is because free coasters on dirt do not mix very well. If you're stuck in between the jumps, you don't have enough speed, you try and take a half crank, that free coaster is really working against you because it's not producing any torque when you do that crank. It's just catching up to the slack. So I do not recommend free coasters on dirt. However, the normal CRS is average for dirt riding. So if you do have a pump track or something like that, you can go hit the pump track and then, get your dirt wings, get a little more comfortable on dirt. So for the most important section in my book, the quality section, the CRS got a 6 out of 40. And this is higher than most beginner level bikes because it did have a little bit of chromoly in the down tube, a little bit of chromoly in the forks, but that's about it. This bike doesn't have anything making it a mid-level bike. It's still, you know, low beginner level. It's not even high beginner level. It's just really low beginner level. And it's going to work if you're just starting out on maybe your first real BMX bike. But other than that, it's too low of a quality to withstand to a lot of different tricks. Now the look section, we got a 25 out of 30. It looks like a really good bike. Visually, very appealing, looks very good, and it comes in a couple different color options so you can kind of choose. Now, everything on this bike is fully customizable. So if you want to get a purple headset, you can get a purple headset. If you want to get a black handlebars, you could get black handlebars, you could get neon sprocket, I don't know. But everything kind of interchanges, and that's going to save you a lot of headache. You know, some people have bikes that are not interchangeable like that. They buy a bunch of aftermarket parts and they can't use them. That's terrible. So this bike will not leave you stranded like that. Good. Now the overall Dougster Bob score, the normal CRS version got a 78 out of 200. This is okay, but again, still on that low end for beginner riders. The free coaster version got an 83, so it did get bumped up quite a bit for having a free coaster and being a little bit better in the street section. Now, this is totally up to you. I mean, there's a lot of preference that goes into it, but I'd say this is a high 70 score bike. If you want to download the tracker to see how it ranks against, you know, I have a whole list in here of different bikes with different scores. You can do that. The link's in the description. Pop over, download the tracker, and see how your bike ranks up or whatever you want to do with it, I guess. Yeah. So now, who is this bike for? I've already kind of touched on this. It's for a beginner level rider, someone who maybe started out on like a Mongoose bike, a Walmart cheap entry level bike, and they've thrashed it because they learned bunny hops, hopping up curbs, maybe even doing some little feeble grinds at a skate park on a small flat ledge. But now they're ready for a better bike. They want something that can kind of help them progress to the mid-level and take them to become a mid-level rider. This bike is going to help get you there, but once you get to mid-level riding, it is not going to work. So if you're riding at a mid-level, you know, you've wasted your time watching this far into the video. You should be looking at something a lot better. All right, the real question, would I recommend this bike? And again, I'm going to have to give it no. I'm going to say no just because $420. Don't get me wrong, guys. Wethepeople is a great brand. They make really great parts, but the bike just is not worth that to me. It might be, you know, something with how much it costs them in Germany to get it here. I don't know, but $420 is a lot of money. Now, if you like the more responsive geometry, you need a smaller top tube like this one has. I understand that. And then that's where that comes into play, because a lot of these entry-level bikes are really limited on what you can actually get size-wise. So if you are looking for something with a 12.75 inch chainstay, a 20.25 inch top tube, it's okay to spend a little extra and get something like this. But for the most part, it is overpriced. Now the free coaster for $440 is a pretty good deal. There's not very many entry-level bikes like this that do come with a free coaster. They don't start to come with free coasters till like the Kink Switch for $500. So if you're looking just for the free coaster, this is a good choice, only if you get the free coaster version. All right, so that's the Wethepeople CRS and the CRS free coaster mixed together into one. So first, let me tell you what Wethepeople says about the Reason. Now, Wethepeople says, the Reason is a serious piece of kit. The Reason is draped in quality from head to toe, featuring a full 4130 chromoly frame with a modern 76-degree head tube and super short 12.75 inch chainstay. The Reason now comes with a shorter 160 millimeter cranks and a steeper 15 millimeter offset fork, making it truly ride like the same bike We the People pros Felix Pragenberg and Dan Crook are riding right now. Felix Pragenberg just got pro for Monster. Super exciting for him. Just reminded me when I read that. So for the most part, this is really accurate, and a couple things. This bike is responsive, like next level responsive. It's crazy. Most head tubes are 75 degrees. This is a whole degree steeper. Most chainstays are 13.2. This is a whole quarter inch smaller. And most offsets on forks are like 26. 26 used to be considered steep. And now recently the game has changed, and 15 millimeters, the new steep, 26 millimeters, the new normal. So this thing's crazy, really responsive. And it also comes with a Salt Pro Free Coaster hub, which Salt is okay. It's not as good as E-Claw, or it's not as good as We the People, but it's okay. Let's talk about how much this bike costs. It's not as much as the Battleship, it's not as much as the Envy, but it's still pretty costly. It's about $600. And there's a lot of bikes out there that are around that price. And for the most part, I think they're great. This is also one of those that you're getting every ounce of quality for your $600. The Reason's a really good bike, and it's kind of unique because of how steep the geometry is. Now it comes in two different colors. One of the guys that hangs out with me on the live stream has this matte black We the People Reason, and the other color option is a matte blue. Now I really like the matte black because it's just a nice clean look with a little bit of the neochrome to pop, where the matte blue is super boring. I don't know, maybe I just like red more than blue, but to me it's just, there's nothing special about it. I don't know, it looks cool, like it looks okay. It's just not, it's nothing to go home and tell your mom about, right? It's okay. So those are the two colors. Now let's talk about the specs that the bike actually comes with. The frame, the bread and butter of the bike is full 4130 chromoly. It's got a tapered chainstay and seat stay with removable brake pivots and guides. So you can run brakes with this bike, but you can also take the pivots and guides off to have a nice, clean looking brakeless bike. It has Salt forks that are also full 4130 chromoly with the 15 millimeter offset. We already talked about that. The other thing I didn't talk about, I'm going to talk about now, is the 160 millimeter cranks. So most cranks are around 175. 160 is going to be a lot closer. And the reason most people do this is because when you're pedaling and the back of your foot's going to hit the peg, especially on a 12.75 inch chainstay like the Reason, when you have 160 millimeter cranks, it shrinks that about by 15 millimeters so that your foot doesn't come as close to the back peg. Pro tip, I bet you didn't know that. Now you do. So that's why the cranks are shorter. Now it also has one double wall rim. This is kind of a big deal to me, mostly because $600, there's the Mafia Cush 2 bike is like a $300 bike. It comes with double wall rims. Now, the double wall rim quality is probably arguably not as good as the double wall rim on here, but look, double wall rims in general take a big beating. You're going to crash, you're going to spin, you're going to smack it, and they bend. They turn into tacos, and the only tacos we like are the ones that are not tacoed rims. So, that was dumb. Anyway, to me, it's just so important to have double wall rims. Now, keep in mind, your front rim generally doesn't take a huge beating. You're not nose casing huge jumps. You're not 360ing nose manual down stair sets. So you can get away with it, but I still like, they went cheap here. They skimped out for sure to give you guys a single wall rim on the front, and I don't really like that. Now, the other important thing is 2 pegs, 4 hub guards. This bike is mostly street ready. The only thing is I wish it had 4 pegs because you could grind on either side. You could grind on both sides if it did come with 4 pegs, but that's okay. The bike does weigh 27 pounds, which is pretty heavy, but keep in mind that's the weight with the pegs and with the hub guards. So the geometry, this is how the bike's shaped, how it's made, and how it's going to affect your riding. Has a 20.75 inch top tube. Now, guys, Google Dougster Bob size guide to find which size is right for you. If you go to the one on my site, all you do is click your height and it tells you exactly what size you need. It's super easy because I don't know how tall you are, but 20.75 is only for certain riders. Keep that in mind, do a little research. Now the chainstay length is really responsive 12.75 like the description said, and what this does is this brings the back wheel in closer to your feet. It makes the bike feel really responsive and really snappy. So spins are going to come around really easily. Manuals are going to pick up easy, but the balance point is going to be a little more hard to control. It has a 76-degree inch head tube angle. We already talked about that. It brings the front wheel under you, makes it really responsive with the steering, makes nose manuals easy to pop up in, and it just makes this thing so crazy, so responsive. And the standover height is 9 inches, which is about average. Most bikes come with a standover height this size. The street score for the Reason is a 29 out of 40, or about 72%. You can already tell this is probably the best discipline to ride this bike on since it is street ready right out of the box. Now the park score is a lot lower at 15 out of 30, or about 50%. It's, it has gyro tabs so you can run gyros, but it doesn't come with a gyro right away. And the geometry is pretty responsive. That's why it got a higher score than most bikes, but it's not all the way park specific. So 50% you can still ride park on this bike for sure and have a lot of fun. All right, in the dirt section, this bike did absolutely terrible. It got a 5 out of 30. The reason it got such a low score is that the geometry is so compact, so responsive that controlling it at high speeds on dirt jumps would be an absolute nightmare. The free coaster is also going to make it really hard to make up the speed. So if you case a jump and you need to get enough speed to clear the second jump, you generally pedal. And with a free coaster, half of your pedal is doing absolutely nothing. It's just the slack catching up and it's not helping you out. So riding dirt on a free coaster is very hard and I don't generally recommend it. That's why this bike got such a low score. Now the quality section is really cool. It got a 20 out of 40, so it got about 50%. This is better than a lot of bikes, but not as good as those $1,000 bikes that we talk about. The reason the quality score is what it is it has full chromoly. It's really important to have full chromoly, but it's not aftermarket chromoly. The aftermarket chromoly has different level of love put into it. It's really just held to a different standard. This is more of a basic, it's still full chromoly. It's going to be a lot stronger than high tensile steel, but it's not on the same level as an aftermarket frame or aftermarket bars or whatever it may be. It also has that one single wall rim, which really makes me angry, and it did lose points for that. Now the style score, it got a 25 out of 30. Most bikes get this. This had two different color options, and to me it's very visually appealing. Like I said, I don't really love the blue, but there's nothing wrong with it. And then everything on this bike is fully customizable, so you could get any bars, put them on. Any pedals, put them on. That's really important because some bikes aren't fully customizable, and then you try and upgrade it and you just wasted all that money, and that's a bad day for sure. Very bad day. Now the overall Dougster Bob score is a 109 out of 200. Overall, this is a pretty high score, but it's not the best. For the price, it's really kind of a low score. There's some bikes that are a lot cheaper that scored a little higher. So, we'll talk about that at the end. But that's the Dougster Bob score. The reason it got that score is because it's really good on street. It's okay in park, not good on dirt, but it does have pretty good quality. So that kind of mashed in together to give it a 109. Now, a big question is, who's this bike actually for? It's a big nightmare of mine that one of you guys might go and buy the wrong bike. So pay attention here. This bike's for someone who likes to ride street. Obviously, you should be riding at about a mid-level. And, if you're riding at a beginner level, this is too much for you. It's a little expensive. If you're riding at a mid-level, you're riding street with the occasional riding park, but you don't ever ride dirt, and you just need something that can hold up to your mid-level tricks. For example, you're doing bar spins, 360s, big 180s, you're grinding handrails, things like that. This bike's good for you because the quality is going to withstand as you keep progressing. Now, the final question is, would I recommend it? And I would say no, but the specific responsive geometry makes me say yes if that's what you're looking for. So we'll take the Cult Devotion, for example. It's $560. Full chromoly, comes with 2 pegs, comes with hub guards. The difference there, though, is it's a 21-inch top tube with a 13.6-inch chainstay. So it's a cheaper bike, same quality. It has full double wall rims, where this bike does not have full double wall rims. But the frame is so big and so tanky that if you're looking to do technical street riding, it would be worth it to spend the extra $40, $50 and get the We the People Reason, where the bike is more designed for that. On average, I really wouldn't, just because, man, it has a single wall rim and it's a $600 bike. Like, come on guys, you could do better. So angry. So that's the We the People Reason. If you sound like the rider I described, it's a good bike. It's just a little overpriced in my opinion. All right, so first, I'm gonna let We the People hype it up a little bit by reading their description of the Arcade. This is what We the People says. A bike with plenty of opportunity, the Arcade really showcases the endless detail and unrivaled quality that we put into our bikes. The super dialed bicycle rolls on salt, super wide 36mm Vallon rims with sealed hubs carrying a full assortment of nylon hub guards, allowing you to have a solid and dependable set of wheels under you at all times. Available in both 20.5 and 21-inch option, the Arcade will give senior riders the ability to ride one of the most popular bikes in our line. So that's pretty hyped up, but you know, they didn't really lie about anything. They just made it really hard to read. Oh my God, I had a hard time with that. But that's okay. Overall, the Arcade is a good bike for beginner level riders and, you know, guys who used to ride that are just getting back into the sport. It is very cool that they include a 20.5-inch option or a 21-inch option, because this is a big issue for people. They're probably too tall but riding at a beginner level, so they're kind of forced into getting a 20.5 or a 20.25, all of which are sizes that are only available in beginner level bikes. Or they have to spend a bunch of extra money to get a taller bike that's way higher quality than they need. So I really like this. Good job, We the People. Solid. Now let's talk about, well, first we're going to talk about price, then color. But I really like the color of one of these bikes. But first off, the price. The Arcade is a $460 bike. It's almost $500, and this is the same price as the 2021 Kink Whip, which in my opinion is the absolute best BMX bike in 2021. There's an in-depth review about it. Check it out, because for the price, the Whip is just way better. But I'll talk about who the Arcade's for and if I would recommend it at the end of the video. Just gonna say the Whip, same price, really good quality. Check it out, okay? Anyway, the colors. Let's talk about the colors. This bike comes in a matte black and a candy red. Now the matte black is matte black with camo tires. This is one of the few, like, I don't personally like the pink Cult Vans camo tires, the pink camo or the blue camo. I don't like that, but this camo tire on the matte black looks really nice. This is probably one of my favorite colored bikes out of We the People's bike line. And the candy red, I love red, so this one looks really nice to me also. Now, let's talk about the specs and like what actually makes up this bike. So the frame is not full chromoly. However, it does have chromoly top and down tube, where the rest of the bike is high tensile steel. So this is practically tri-moly, but not quite. The big issue that I see here is that back end being high tensile steel, because, shouts out to Jeff, got this finger bike. When you're doing 360s, you're doing a 360 and you're probably landing sketchy, but even if you aren't, your tire is going this way, right? The spin is traveling. So that's putting so much impact on this back end right here. you know, the ground's that like the bike's like this, so the ground's going to push it this way. And what happens is this back end gets tweaked on a lot of high tensile steel. That happens all the time. So that's the main issue that I see with this frame. If you're doing a lot of spins, you want to spin down stair sets, skip over this bike and get something a little better quality. Other than that though, this is better than some of the lower end bikes in Wethepeople's line that only come with like a chromoly down tube, which does nothing, right? Now it has high tensile steel forks with a chromoly steer tube. I talk about this all the time. This chromoly steer tube really doesn't do anything. If the legs are high tensile steel, the legs are going to bend when you nose case a jump, when you case a jump, when you do disasters or whatever, your legs bend because they're really flimsy and our body weights just put them under a lot of pressure. So if you do get this bike, I guarantee it, you'll be looking to replace your forks pretty soon, if you're a harder rider, okay? Now this bike weighs 27.7 pounds and it does not come with pegs. However, it comes with 4 different hub guards. So this is kind of cool because hub guards are a pain. There's universal hub guards that are only kind of universal. There's real specific hub guards that are like $30, and it's just a pain to find the right hub guards. So I do like that this bike comes with hub guards and you can find pegs and slap the pegs on. I think pegs are a ripoff. So if you know, I wish it came with pegs. That would have made it a better bike for street and a better deal. But they included the hub guards, so I won't be too picky. Now it has single wall salt rims, and again, guys, we're going to use the handy dandy finger bike to demonstrate. You're doing spins, you're doing big drops. This rim, every time you spin, every time you move, your rim is taking a beating. And they really hyped up the wheels in the description, but they're single wall, meaning that they bend so easily. I've had, you know, I've completely destroyed double wall rims doing like a manual 180. So a single wall rim, if you aren't really smooth with your riding, it's going to take a beating and it's not going to last very long, especially that back rim. That's really all that's worth mentioning in the spec section. There's some salt parts, but nothing really crazy. Aftermarket E-cloth seat and seat clamp, nobody really cares about that. But let's talk about the specs and how the specs are going to affect the feel and the makeup of this bike. Now we already talked about the 20.5 inch top tube and the 21 inch top tube. I'm really happy about that there's 2 different options. Check out my size guide, just Google Dougster Bob size guide, go to the website, click your height, and it tells you exactly what size you need, because I don't know how tall you are, so it's really hard for me to tell. But the right size bike is so important, so make sure you do that before you buy a bike. Now the chainstay is a 12.75 inch. Pretty compact compared to other chainstays. It's a lot closer together. This is going to make spins easier. It's going to make picking up manuals easier, but the manuals might be harder to control. So the bike's going to feel really responsive. Now the head tube angle is 75 degrees. This is what most head tube angles are. Nothing crazy here, nothing special. The standover height is 8.75 inches, which is a little bit shorter than the standard of 9. Again, nothing real crazy, nothing to really talk about on the standover height or the head tube angle. The biggest thing is that chainstay length, that short chainstay length, and the 2 different top tube sizes. So now let's run through the street score, the park score, the dirt score, the quality score, the style score, and the overall Dougster Bob score to see how this bike stacks up in different sections. So for the street section, the Wethepeople Arcade got a 14 out of 40, which is 35%. And this is, you know, this is pretty low, but it's not the worst. It's okay in street. It could do better if it came with pegs, but it did get some bonus points because it has hub guards. Now the park score is also, it's a 13 out of 30, which is a 43%, a little bit better in the park section. This is mostly because that short responsive chainstay makes responsive park riding so much easier. The tires are pretty good for park, and the head tube is drilled for gyros. The bike comes with gyro tabs, so you could put a gyro on it if you wanted to. However, it doesn't come with that gyro setup. Now for the dirt score, it got a 10 out of 30, which is about average. Most bikes that aren't specific for dirt got this score, and some bikes were worse, but most of them are right at about 10. This bike can kind of handle dirt, but I wouldn't recommend getting it if you're a full-blown dirt rider. Maybe you hit the pump track occasionally or you hit some small dirt jumps occasionally. That's fine. But if you're a real crazy rider, don't get it. Now for the quality, this is the most important part. And this bike only got a 7 out of 40. This is because it's not full chromoly, it's not double wall rims. It just doesn't have a lot of those components that make a really strong bike. It's basic quality, it has a little bit of chromoly, so it's a little bit better, but nothing crazy, nothing that's gonna even come close to lasting a mid-level rider. So we got a 23 out of 30 on the style score, and this is mostly because it's a little bit limited with the 2 options, but also some people don't like the black and camo, so therefore it got a little bit lower score on how visually appealing it is. I love it, but some people don't, and I kind of take in a lot of consideration when I'm giving these scores. All right, so the Dougster Bob score is an 82, which is actually lower than the Wethepeople CRS Free Coaster, and this bike is $20 more. So this is going to be fun to talk about in the last section about if I would recommend it or not. But the Dougster Bob score is 82. If you want to download this sheet and see how a bunch of different bikes stack up against each other, it's really easy to just look and see which bikes are good for what and yada yada yada. There's a link in the description. You just put in your email address and you get it sent to you. Real easy. You can check out tons of different bikes. So the big question that you're probably wondering is, who's this bike actually for? Well, the Arcade is best for people who like to ride a little bit of street and a little bit of park. It's set up so that the geometry is not real specific one way or the other, and you can add pegs or you could add a gyro to lean it more towards park or lean it more towards street, whichever one you do most. It's a pretty neutral bike. You can hit pump tracks occasionally, but it's only for beginner level riders. If you're doing 360s, bar spins, tail whips, grinding handrails, this bike is not going to last for you, and you need something a lot better. Now, would I recommend it? And I hate this section on a lot of these bikes because the answer is no. It's, $460. It's got a little bit of chromoly. It doesn't have double wall rims. It has a small handful of aftermarket parts. But for that price, man, like I said, the kink whip, full chromoly, double wall rims, fully sealed, it's a lot better bike for the price. Now, don't get me wrong, Wethepeople's an outstanding brand, and I love almost everything that they do. But I don't want you to get ripped off, and I feel like this bike's overpriced. That's the Wethepeople Arcade. I don't really recommend it for you guys. Get something a little better quality or a little better priced if that's what you're looking for. Well, that's the 2021 Wethepeople bike line. There are so many different options in that line, and some of the options are obviously much better than the others. I hope I was able to help you figure out which bike is right for you, if any. And if you're still unsure, make sure you fill out that recommendation form so that I can get you a free BMX bike recommendation. I'd love to see you hanging out with us in the live on Friday. And yeah, once you get that bike, follow for more BMX related content to help you take your riding to the next level. Have a great day.